When Captain Marcus Bennett stepped onto the plane, he wasn't just any passenger, he was the pilot. But the crew didn't know that. Denied a seat in first class, Marcus uttered three simple words that flipped the entire situation upside down. Stay tuned to uncover this powerful story. And don't forget to share where you're watching from, we'd love to know. The sleek interior of the Skylux Airlines plane sparkled under soft cabin lighting. In first class, plush leather seats gleamed, each one wider than the norm, with legroom that seemed to stretch endlessly. The faint aroma of citrus mingled with the fragrance of freshly brewed coffee as flight attendants welcomed passengers with polished smiles. Elliot Barnes, a tall black man in his late 40s, stepped into the cabin, dressed casually in a black bomber jacket, jeans, and sneakers. He looked more like a relaxed traveler than the seasoned pilot he was. Elliot, a senior captain for Skylux Airlines, was flying as a passenger today, taking a well-earned break after weeks of long-haul flights. As Elliot approached his assigned seat, 3A, he smiled at the flight attendant standing nearby. She glanced at him but didn't return the smile. Instead, her eyes darted to his clothes and back to the boarding pass in his hand. "Sir, are you sure you're in the right section?" she asked, her tone sharp. Elliot raised an eyebrow. Was she serious? Or had he misheard her? He handed over his boarding pass without a word. The flight attendant, Karen Adams, inspected it with pursed lips. "This is first class," she said, holding the pass up as though verifying its authenticity. "Are you sure you're supposed to be here?" Elliot nodded, his voice calm. "That's what the ticket says, doesn't it?" Karen's gaze shifted between the ticket and Elliot. "We've had incidents before where passengers accidentally take the wrong seat. Let me check with my supervisor." The murmurs of nearby passengers began to grow louder. Elliot could feel their eyes on him, some curious, others judgmental. "Ma'am," Elliot said, his patience beginning to wear thin. "I'm telling you, this is my seat." But Karen didn't back down. Instead, she leaned toward another flight attendant and whispered something. A moment later, she turned back to Elliot. "We need to verify this with the gate. Please step aside until we sort this out." Elliot glanced around, noticing the uncomfortable glances from other passengers. One man in a suit muttered, "What's the holdup?" Elliot sighed, his calm exterior hiding the frustration boiling underneath. Should he speak up now, or let them dig themselves into a deeper hole? As Elliot stood near the galley, he could feel the weight of the stares directed his way. The whispers from nearby passengers weren't subtle, and neither were the judgmental glances cast in his direction. He could hear snippets of their conversations. "Why would they stop him?" one woman muttered. "Maybe he tried to sneak up here," another man whispered, his tone accusatory. Elliot inhaled deeply, working to keep his composure. He wasn't new to this. Throughout his career, he had faced skepticism and outright doubt about his place in spaces of prestige or authority. When he first became a pilot, passengers would sometimes request to meet the captain, only for their expressions to change when they saw him standing confidently in the cockpit. He thought back to the countless times he had been underestimated. At first, it had bothered him, gnawed at his pride, but over the years, he had learned to let those moments fuel him, using every doubt as motivation to excel even further. Yet standing there in first class, dressed casually on what was supposed to be a relaxing flight, he felt the same sting of injustice. Not today, he thought. Not here. Elliot glanced at Karen, the flight attendant who had questioned his place. She avoided his gaze, busying herself with pretending to check on the other passengers. But her avoidance only confirmed what he already knew. This wasn't about protocol or procedure. It was about assumption. He adjusted his jacket and stood straighter. If she was going to treat him like he didn't belong, he would remind her and everyone else exactly who he was. Elliot picked up his briefcase and started toward Karen. It was time to put an end to this and ensure it wouldn't happen again. As Elliot approached Karen again, the tension in the cabin was palpable. Passengers had stopped unpacking their bags and sipping their drinks. All eyes were now on him and the flight attendant who had questioned his right to sit in first class. Karen glanced up, her expression shifting from annoyance to slight unease as Elliot stopped directly in front of her. "We're still waiting for confirmation from the gate," she said, her voice a little less confident now. Elliot leaned in slightly, his voice calm but firm. "I need you to listen very carefully," he began, his tone carrying an air of authority that immediately quieted the nearby whispers. "I fly this plane." Karen blinked, her face a mixture of confusion and disbelief. "What?" she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. Elliot straightened up, making sure his voice could carry to the passengers watching intently. "I'm Captain Elliot Barnes, senior pilot for Skylux Airlines. I've been flying for this company for over a decade. Today is my day off, and I'm here as a passenger. But I can assure you, I have every right to this seat." Karen stammered, her earlier confidence shattered. "I didn't mean to. I just thought." "You thought wrong," Elliot interrupted, his voice steady but resolute. "And that's the problem. Assumptions like yours don't just inconvenience passengers, they damage the reputation of this airline and everyone who works for it." The second flight attendant stepped in, her tone conciliatory. "Captain Barnes, we deeply apologize for this misunderstanding. Please allow us to make it right." Elliot nodded, but didn't let the moment pass without a lesson. He turned to the nearby passengers, many of whom were still watching intently. "This isn't just about me," he said, his voice carrying through the cabin. "It's about ensuring that everyone, regardless of appearance, is treated with the same respect. Because respect shouldn't depend on who you think someone is, it's about who they are." Applause broke out in the cabin, with passengers voicing their support. Karen, visibly shaken, excused herself to the galley as Elliot finally settled into his seat. The second flight attendant approached him cautiously. "Sir, is there anything we can get you?" Elliot shook his head. "What I need is for your crew to reflect on what happened today and learn from it. That's how we make this industry better." Elliot's three whispered words had silenced the cabin, but their impact resonated far beyond the moment. Moments like these, where prejudice met truth, weren't just about calling out individuals. They were opportunities to change mindsets and systems. As the plane leveled at cruising altitude, Elliot leaned back in his seat, reflecting on how easily this incident could have spiraled further if he hadn't spoken up. "This wasn't just about me," he thought. "It's about setting a standard for respect, respect for dignity, for equality." Passengers continued to exchange murmurs, some praising his calm demeanor, others visibly grappling with the lesson they had just witnessed. Elliot smiled faintly, knowing that even small moments like these could ripple outward, inspiring others to think differently about their own assumptions and biases. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a situation like this? Share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring tales of justice and resilience.